Hello, and welcome to Spirits in the Theater, Season 3. Did you guys know there were seasons to Spirits in the Theater? Because I didn't. Anyway, listen, I'm excited because we're rolling out a new format for this series. How this is going to go, I cannot tell you. But to get us started, I'm going to give you the setup for the movie we're talking about, which is... Dun, 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 dun. Actually, you know what? This is the movie we're going to... Let me see if you can get this before I say it. Oh, I missed the key, but do you know... It probably says it on the thumbnail, so there's no point in me doing this. The movie is called Titanic. Did you know that it's not the Titanic, it's just Titanic. Anyway, we're going to talk about Titanic today. Listen, for the last year and a half, I've wanted to watch Titanic, and I keep telling friends, guys, I want to watch Titanic. And nobody wants to watch it, ever. Like, they don't want to see it. And like, we all admit it's a great movie, but no one wants to see it ever again. I want to see it on repeat. I watched it 3 days ago, and I want to see it again. I'm not kidding. I want to see that movie again. It's so good. And so I understand you guys haven't seen Titanic in like 10 years, and you won't plan on watching it again, but I'm telling you, this movie is so good. There's something deeply moving and important about this film. I think I've only seen it 3 times, but it's important. All right. So the setup, here's the deal. We've got Jack, a homeless poor dude. We see him betting his life away, randomly cards at a bar, right? And he wins tickets to the Titanic, right? He gets to take the ship across the country, or across the sea to America. And so we see he's like flighty and impulsive and just living life by the seat of his pants. And then we see another character, Rose, rich, well-to-do, kind of snobby and stuck up actually, and not happy. Engaged to this steel tycoon, right? First class ticket. Oh yeah, by the way, Jack's ticket, 3rd class, bottom of the ship, like bottom of the barrel, if you know what I mean. And so Rose is like having all like 80 suitcases like carted onto the ship when she's getting shown to her room. They have multiple rooms. It's just for her and Cal. She and Cal, her and Cal, Cal and her. And so anyway, this is the scene, right? And they're getting on this ship and they're both heading in a direction. And we get to learn there's an ecosystem here. Oh, there's a 1st class and a 3rd class. I think there's a 2nd class that we never see. Maybe there's not. 1st and 3rd, I don't understand that. Anyway, what you don't understand though is because we all know this movie is about a ship that's gonna sink. And that's the weirdest thing is you go into this film knowing the ship is going to be at the bottom of the Atlantic by the end of the movie, right? You know that. Even if you haven't seen it yet, you already know that's what's going to happen because it's a historical event. However, multiple times throughout this experience, you find yourself emotionally holding on to the possibility that maybe the ship won't sink. I swear, every time I've seen this movie, I catch myself in the middle, still hoping it won't. And I don't want to admit that, but that's absolutely true. And I noticed it this last time I was watching it, I was alone. Yeah, I watched it alone because no one wants to see it with me. So I'm sitting here in my living room by myself watching this movie. My roommate was in Mexico. And I catch myself in the middle of it starting to sink a little bit. I'm like, oh my gosh, they can still do it though. Like I find myself emotionally invested in Jack and Rose are going to make it. The ship isn't going to sink and Jack's not going to die. So anyway, we think this movie is about a ship that's going to sink and it's this like historic event, right? This movie has almost nothing to do with the ship. This movie is about love. This is a love story, man. The Titanic just happens to be where we are when this story happens, but this is so not about the boat. This is about Jack and Rose. This is about Rose. God, listen, we're gonna get into it. So let's get into the second segment of our episode, the drama. It's somewhere on the screen, I'm sure. All right, so Rose is engaged to Cal Hockley, the steel tycoon, the wealthy dude, right? So we're super impressed with her outfits and her Picasso paintings everywhere and just the lavish lifestyle that Rose clearly gets to live in. Only obviously the depiction of this is like, we understand and recognize that there's monetary value here, but clearly these scenes are strained. Rose is restricted. She's diminished and we're like, oh, there's a little bit of an unspoken struggle here, right? And she's like tight and like a little bit of angry edge to her, right? She's short with people. She's a little bit dismissive, kind of stuck up. She's like, oh, it seems kind of small in this other ship. He's like, no, Rose, this ship's bigger than any other ship. And she's like, I don't know. You can see it, she's just kind of a snob, right? And you're like, interesting, I don't think I like this girl. And so we watch her continue to just be stuck up and hard and a little bit bitter. And at some point, Rose ends up fleeing dinner because you slowly continue to just witness, like, oh, she's miserable. Oh, she's unhappy. Oh, she doesn't like this. Oh, she feels trapped. Oh, she doesn't have a voice. Oh, this guy's controlling her. You just continue to catch little whiffs here and there, and she doesn't want to be controlled. She doesn't want to be trapped, right? So at some point, she's running across the ship, crying, pulling her dress up, just kind of waddling for a while, crying. She's miserable. She gets to the end of the ship, crawls over the railing, is about to toss herself off. And Jack's like, what the... right? Comes over, they have a chat, they get to meet each other, and she's still stuck up. While she's in the middle of like trying to kill herself and he's trying to help her, she's like condescending and rude to this kid, right? She's like, what did she say? She's something like, don't tell me what I will not do. You don't presume to know me. Who are you? And she's just like super, and he's like, with all due respect, miss. She's like, what are you, you're crazy. He's like, with all due respect, miss, I may be crazy, but I'm not the one standing at the edge of a ship or something. Yeah, I killed the line. Anyway, and so you start to see them like have the personalities. They both haven't backed down. They're both being themselves and working out this dynamic. And at some point, obviously, he saves her. And he starts taking off his clothes, right? She's like, what are you doing? He's like, well, listen, I'm involved now, right? This is an important element to this movie that I didn't notice the first few times. He's like, I'm aware that you are going through all this trouble and you're about to kill yourself, and I've been pulled in. If you jump, I have to jump in after you. Is what he's saying, and we all like are convinced he's gonna do it, right? Like, this guy's gonna jump off the boat. And she's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm morally obligated to intervene with what's happening now because I'm aware of what you're about to do, and this is wrong, right? Is basically what he's saying. And so at this point, Jack crosses a line in their lives because he knows in his moral compass, he can't walk away from this scenario unaffected. This is a really important part of human morality, of us being able to recognize justice and truth and love in the world. Jack is demonstrating character, like compassion. We see the first-class people just being pretty isolated and individualistic in their experience and separated or insulated from the plight of humanity, right? They just have all these servants giving them everything they want and creating the perfect experience according to their demands and expectations. Jack's like, hey, this is not convenient for me, but I see you as a human being. I recognize the value and worth that you possess. I must regard that, right? This is important. Okay, so anyway, she's like struggling, leave me alone, whatever. He pulls her over. She doesn't want to die. He pulls her over, right? Fast forward, there's another, they invite him to dinner, right? He goes to dinner, experiences the first class snootiness, oh God. And at some point later, he comes to her, and Jack is now starting to become attracted to Rose. You know this, and he can't walk away. And she's like, Jack, you need to leave me alone. Because her mom confronts her, right? She's like, what are you doing? You know there's no money left. Like, Cal is a good match. He's gonna be the way that we survive. Women have difficult choices in this life. It's not fair, that's true. Get your head together, Rose. Stop being selfish. And Rose has this moral quandary. She's like, oh my God, you're right, I'm being selfish. I gotta take care of my mom. I gotta like be responsible. So she tries to push Jack away. And I think she's sincerely actually trying to get past this. And Jack's like, hey, I'll let this go as long as I'm convinced you're okay. I don't think that's the case. I think you're drowning, right? He's like, if you don't get out of this, you're gonna die. Maybe not right away because you're strong, but eventually that fire in you that I've seen and I've borne witness to that's beautiful, it will die out. I'm not convinced you're okay. And she's like, oh God, and she just runs away, right? Here's the thing. I don't want to over-dramatize this, you know what I mean? But we got to deal with this. At some point halfway through the film, and I think I'd heard somebody mention this to me. I think my friend Daniela talks about this. She's seen it this way. Jack, from a believer's standpoint, in Rose's story, represents Jesus. He's intervening and saying, hey, I think there's different for you than this. I think there's better. It might cost you everything, but I want to show you life, right? And she's like, oh God, no. Because Cal represents security, control, safety, provision, right? Like, I get to live comfortably. Jack represents risk, adventure, freedom, life, right? Love. So we see Rose struggling, and I think we all identify with that in whatever way that we do. We all have our addiction to control and our temptation toward security and being able to predict what's going to happen. And so anyway, fast forward, listen, we get to the best part of the film. This is the next segment of this episode. Best part. We're going to get to the best part, in my opinion. This is the best part of the whole movie, in my opinion, okay? Rose and Jack, the ship is sinking now, right? And Cal gets Rose to a lifeboat, and Jack is with her, and he's like, get on the boat, Rose. So she gets on, and Jack's not allowed because he's a boy, right? Guys aren't allowed, only women and children first. So Rose is on the lifeboat, it's starting to descend, and Cal lies to her and says that he's got an arrangement for him and Jack on the other side of the ship. All right, so Rose is descending, and it's slowly, she's getting further and further away from the two men in her life, right? The guy she doesn't want to be with, she's trapped by, and the guy she loves. The safe, secure, responsible choice, the scary, risky, life-giving choice, right? And she's descending. And it keeps going, and at some point, you see on Rose's demeanor, she has a realization. What am I doing, right? She doesn't want to survive. She doesn't want to just escape this nightmare. More than her own survival, she wants to be with Jack. More than preserving herself, she wants to be with Jack. So she jumps off the lifeboat at the second story, barely gets back on the ship. It's a really funny moment for me. I'm like, her body's just like folded in half, trying to get on, and people help her up. And Jack's like, no, and he takes off running, right? Cal kind of follows Jack to try and keep up, to like, oh God, what's happening? Jack's like booking it for Rose. Why? So anyway, they're both running toward each other. We have the music is building. Oh God, it's so dramatic. And they're running toward each other, and they meet at the foot of the staircase, clinging to each other. She's crying, he's crying. He's like, Rose, you're so stupid. You're so stupid, Rose. Why'd you do that? He's so upset because all he wants to do is preserve her, take care of her, make sure she's okay. And all she wants to do is be with Jack, even if it's only for a few more moments. She doesn't want to live without this person. She's aware like, oh my God, what's happened here is more important than my security, than my comfort, than my responsibility. She's submitting to love. And I'm like, oh, this is the deal. Like, this is the gospel in a film. We give up everything we have because of love. Not because it makes sense. Not because it spares us. Not because it's the sensible, responsible, secure thing to do. Because love governs our lives. That's why we say yes to Jesus. That's why he said yes to us. He didn't do it because he was responsible. He did it because he loves us. Right? Like, and that's something I think we don't understand. Like, we miss the whole, the dynamic of our relationship with God. And so there's an invitation. The fourth part of this is the invitation. There's an invitation here in this film. I mean, it's in lots of films, but oh my gosh, it is so beautifully and well constructed. Rose is struggling between the option of guaranteeing her own survival and security, and not just from the ship, but in her life, right? Or the option for life, right? To be alive, to be free, to follow her heart, to let love guide her. And she chooses love. Even if she has to get back in the ship that's going to hell, she'd rather be there with love himself than be safely preserved away from the person she's bound to, right? This is love. It's the self-sacrificial giving of oneself for something we've observed and borne witness to being more valuable than us. It's not because we don't value ourselves, it's because this thing is more valuable. So in most of the love stories, understanding our own nature, you guys, I don't care what kind of personality type you have. I don't care what your history has been. I don't care what your job is. I don't care what you hope for in the future. Every single one of us, our hearts beat because of love, not sensibility. We are alive because love is the king. We're in this story and we are pulled into it even deeper, and we make profound, risky, stupid, irresponsible decisions because of love. And I would actually propose, when you are being led by the Spirit, the stupid, irresponsible decisions are the ones that deny the heart, that deny the Spirit, and go after what makes sense to the flesh. Go after what is secure and prolongs and guarantees. That's not what God's after. We get to release that to him, and we get to go after what our heart beats for, what pulls us, what we can't live without. We'd rather die than be without this. That's the invitation here. There's something about this tragedy, right? When you watch all these people come to the end of themselves and they're like, oh my God, this is the end of my life. And you see the depravity and the frantic frenzy that comes out of them. There's something inviting in this film that lets you touch in your own life. What are you willing to die for? Are you willing to consider giving up stuff that means so much to you for something that matters more? Can you handle that? Are you willing to? How many of us are willing to even consider that? Have that conversation. I'm very aware of that invitation in this film, and it's so powerful. I remember I was sick, like probably 8 years ago. I stayed home from work, and I watched Titanic. And I was like, when I get sick, man, like, everything's hard. The world is difficult. People don't know me. I'm alone. You know, it's weird. I get in this weird place. And so I watched Titanic, and in there, I touched, like, the edge of my own life. I'm like, whoa. There's an invitation. You guys, there's actually freedom in knowing what you're willing to give up your life for than in avoiding that altogether. We want to know this, right? We want to cast our lot there and then govern ourselves accordingly. And remember, guys, when you watch a movie, you're never alone. Thanks for watching this video, you guys. Remember to like the video. Give us a comment below. What did you love? What stuck out to you? What did you love about Titanic? I want to know. Subscribe to my channel. Hit that bell button so you get notifications when we have another video that comes out. And I also want to let you know, we have a few different coaching routes in the Numa world over here. And one of them I wanted to highlight, especially in light of this last episode. We have a coaching subscription called Living Your Legend. And the whole premise behind this is you have a coach from our world, someone I've personally trained, who's going to walk with you through first identifying, why are you here? What are the gifts, talents, anointings, skills, calling that you have, right? What's your assignment? And then what are the things that have uniquely and specifically gotten in the way to try and inhibit you from being that person, from doing those things? And then how do we practically walk that out? You're doing this with a bunch of other people. There's community, right? There's a course you get to go through, but then also the one-on-one coaching piece. You get to work with someone who's going to help you address this stuff and live your legend. If you're interested in that, you can check it out at MikeMyashiro.com.